All right. Hello, my little droogies. God
Oh,
damn it. I can't even
Jesus
say that with a
fucking
straight fucking face.
Christ. I'm quitting. You're never seeing me on this podcast again. Next week, it's just
All
going to be me in this fucking empty chair. God
right.
fucking damn it.
All right. Hello, people of YouTube land. Those that are part of the Cringe Crew gaming community Discord. Those that follow Ted and I on Twitch. And those that are listening to this on Spotify and any other audio streaming platform that this fucking podcast is put on. This is the Cringe Crew Gaming movie review podcast, where we take a director's filmography and we review and rank it. We are doing Stanley Kubrick, and we are on to his movie A Clockwork Orange. If you couldn't tell from me, doing the botched beginning by referring to everybody as droogies, since this film is in the language of NASDAQ, at least with the uh, delinquents. But anyway, released in 1971, based off of. Did you know this was a book? Yeah. That's gonna get old really quick. Based on Anthony Burgess's 1962 novel of the same name. This movie basically follows the novel very closely. There's subtle changes, such as there was a rape scene that was omitted that was switched out with like a consensual scene with the William Tell overture over it, and a character lives but dies in the novel, and there's a different ending in the novel, and it's really like basically minor differences, and even the ending's kind of a minor difference. But obviously directed by Stanley Kubrick, screenplay by Stanley Kubrick, produced by Stanley Kubrick. Jesus Christ. Music by Wendy Carlos, who is a Grammy Award winning electronic musician and is known for being the first transgender recipient of a Grammy award. So, which I think might have been, was it for this? I wonder if it was for this here.
I kind of doubt it, but I guess it's possible.
No, it wasn't. Okay. I'm pretty sure it was for something, because I know that she's...
Well, of course it was for something.
But what I'm saying is, I know that she was kind of a big deal when it comes to, like, electronic music. Especially when it comes to, like, soundtracks. Like, she also did The Shining and Tron. But... that being said, I think... let's see. The release dates, December 1971, New York City, January 13th, 1972 in the United Kingdom, and February 2nd, 1972 in the rest of the United States. Budget of $100.3 million, the box office return of $114 million. Cast, we have Malcolm McDowell as Alex DeLarge, the Mary protagonist in this. Patrick McGee as Frank Alexander, who is a author that is attacked by Alex that appears throughout this movie twice. He is known for the role of Marquis de Sade in the original stage and screen productions of Marat/Sade. He's also in quite a few other known British films, such as Barry Lyndon by directed by Stanley Kubrick. He's also in Roger Corman's Mask of the Red Death. Francis Ford Coppola's Dementia 13. He's in Chariots of Fire. A a whole bunch of things. He's one of the There's a few actors in this that are very recognizable, with the exception, which besides Malcolm McDowell, we have also Michael Bates as Chief Guard Barnes. Michael Bates is best known as Cyril Blameyer from the TV series Last of the Summer Wine, the longest British sitcom, and the longest sitcom ever made, with the exception of The Simpsons.
America stuff.
I know that this has like a long it seems like there's a Wikipedia article for the entire cast, but like not a lot of these people are people that I recognize. If I'm actually like besides like the three that I mentioned. However, there are early roles of for David Prowse, who is who plays an assistant for Frank Alexander, and David Prowse is the guy that plays the body version of um Darth Vader. We also have Steven Burkhoff, who played the villain in one of the two villains in Octopussy, and also the villain in Beverly Hills Cop. He's also in this film as Detective Constable Tom. And then apparently there's like an early role of like for Carol Drinkwater, who's a British actress that is known for her television adaptation of the James Herriot books, All Creatures Great and Small. And apparently the film was originally projected to star the rock band the Rolling Stones, with Mick Jagger, lead singer Mick Jagger, expressing his interest in the lead role of Alex. And filmmaker Ken Russell was attached to direct it. However, that never came to fruition due to the British Board of Film Classification. And then the rights ended up falling to Kubrick, who said, "Fuck your film classification. I'm making this." McDowell was chosen as the role of Alex due to Kubrick seeing his him in the movie If, and when asking why he was picked for the role, Kubrick told him, "You can exude intelligence on screen." He also helped Kubrick on the uniform of Alex's gang. When he showed Kubrick the cricket whites he had, Kubrick asked him to put on a box jockstrap, not under but on top of the costume. Although the costume that's used is, fairly similar to what's in the book. Also, during a filming of the Ludovico technique, Malcolm McDowell had his cornea scratched and was temporarily blinded, and the doctor standing next to him in the scene, dropping saline solution into his opened eyes, was a real physician present to prevent the the actor's eyes from drying. And McDowell also cracked a couple ribs during the humiliation stage show after the Ludovico technique was done. Also, the scene where Alex jumps out of the window within a suicide attempt, showing the camera approaching the ground from Alex's point of view. The effect was actually done by dropping the camera on the ground, and to Kubrick's surprise, the camera survived 6 takes.
Okay.
Oh, and the music in this, like I said, not necessarily by Wendy Carlos, but arranged. Most of this is classical music that is played on a synthesizer. That being said, I think we could go with influence later in the podcast here so that we can get into the fucking plot of this and with like likes and dislikes.
The plot. So I guess the to really break it down, the Alex and his gang of ne'er-do-wells, he gets caught. He goes to jail. He wants to get out of jail as soon as possible so he can go back to causing trouble. Ends up going through this experimental method that will cure him of his ability to do any wrong, which is essentially torture. And then he finds life being a struggle because everybody knows him as being a criminal. And then he kind of goes back to crime, sort of. But yeah, I think it's just time to just break straight into likes and dislikes. To be honest,
right.
Look, symbolism was good. It was so fucking heavy-handed, dude. The whole thing. It was the whole thing was Nazism, like, and it wasn't like. It wasn't secret. It wasn't hidden either. I mean, the dude with like the very distinctive mustache and the red armband around his arm for precisely no reason, with his very spastic movements and abundant salutes. This was Nazism.
Not to mention, like, Alex's rival Billy Boy actually has like a German like hat with like the Nazi eagle on it, and also is wearing like an Iron Cross necklace.
It was so heavy-handed, man. I think in other films, like, Kubrick does a really good job with, like, making you like aware of the larger societal points, right? And
right.
This one just didn't fucking do it. Like, even I think the symbolism was cool with like when Alex gets cured, he runs into his old buddies who are the cops. And now there's like this whole societal piece about like how good can the cops be for us because they could be anybody, right? Like, I think it was understated. I don't think that was like a major plot point other than just, you know, the cops were there to beat his ass. But also seems... like, but there are other like subtleties like that like I think Kubrick typically does really well. And this one's just abundantly like, hey, how much can we shove Nazism into a film? And man, they fucking did.
I mean, there is like aspects of that. I think a lot of it is also kind of talks about like the society in this movie in general is like grant like Alex and his gang are like extremely terrible people, but like it seems like everybody kind of running the show is just as fucking bad. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I don't know, something about
so
like...
you kind of I mean, Grant, like, I honestly think that Alex would be still a fucking sociopath, even if, like, you know, the society that he was, like, brought up in, and, like, had he had parents that basically gave a shit, like, he still would probably be a violent, like, sociopath, but, like, being brought up in like that type of society honestly didn't help.
Yeah,
and it also
go ahead.
And there was also a debate on like, does the punishment fit the crime, and are we just like spitting off things as opposed to like
I started with dislikes because that one was just too...
dislikes. Yeah. Okay, we'll go into likes later on that. I'll elaborate more with like likes, but I would say like there's more than that to the Nazism thing, but I do think the Nazism thing was a little bit heavy-handed. And kind of distracts from like all the other, you know, arguments that are being made in the movie that I think are a little bit more important to like the story itself.
Yeah, I think that there are themes of like reformation, right? There's themes about revenge, and all of them just kind of get muted behind the idea of violence and Nazis, and that's... I think it made it hard to see the forest through the trees, right? Like, I know those other things were there, and it was hard to pick up on them. There were also some like really obnoxious ways in which this movie was written. So first off, is
this you saying the movie's too aggressively British?
You literally took the words right out of my mouth. Like, I think the choice of dialogue, I mean, some of the mannerisms, like The longer I sit and think about it, I'm wondering if Britain isn't the important part because of the heavy-handedness of the Nazism, like distinctly the way that, like, you know, the interactions between England and Germany throughout the war. Like, if that wasn't done on purpose, but this wasn't just it happens to be British or they're in like it was overwritten to like overdo the fact that they were super fucking British. And then there's just
especially Northern England.
right, and it just like there's so many like unnecessary pieces and redundancies. I mean, not necessarily along the same lines, but in the idea of redundancies, right? The cup with the dentures, right at the beginning of the film.
Oh my god, he's still pissed off about that.
I am still pissed off about it because, like, the idea is that nobody's in the bed. If they had already gotten out of bed and left, they would have had the dentures in. The only other persons they could have been would have been the Alex's dad or stepdad or whatever the fuck he was, and he was there clearly with teeth. And then the dude drank out of the dentures. Like, it was. Why did you write that into the film? It's so goddamn stupid. Why are they putting in things that just add discomfort for no reason? If your goal is to get these major overarching themes and to have feelings about the bigger pieces of society, I hate that they're writing in just these unnecessary, stupid, useless bits. I will say that, like, I think that there have been scenes in the previous Kubrick movies that just got filmed for too long, right? That, like,
right.
Like, I'm thinking back to the guy running around in a circle on a roof as he's running from the cops, right? Like, I don't know, 7 movies ago, right? And that one, like, yeah, it was important to see him running, but also he literally just ran around a roof in a giant circle and the scene was 2.5 minutes long. You could have cut it down and gotten the same point, right? And this movie skipped a lot of that. There weren't any of those, like, overextended long scenes, but there were still some things just written in, like dialogue especially, that just, like, were unnecessary.
I mean, yeah, I'd say so. Like, there's a few. Also, like, I understand that there's like some choices in here, like, I'm not sure like why they're done the way they are, just to make people uncomfortable for uncomfortable sake, such as while Alex is talking to like his caseworker, and like his caseworker is like basically saying like, I need you to not fuck up for my reputation, but at the same time he's kind of like over enthusiastic about it, and it gets a little handsy, and it's kind of like really, really fucking awkward and weird. Although later on when you see the caseworker, like, it acts like it's kind of like not necessarily like that scene didn't necessarily happen. It's like, oh yeah, you fucked up, you're a murderer. I'm glad that you're out of my hair.
Right.
So, it's like a night and day type of thing, and it's like the whole creepiness of like the first time you see the caseworker, there's no payoff. It kind of goes nowhere, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think
there's a couple things in this where it does, where there isn't really that much of a payoff on some certain things.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that like and
it makes me wonder. And I haven't read the book in a while. It makes me wonder, like, if more stuff was cut out of the book that I remember.
Admittedly, like, I don't think those places that don't have a payoff, I don't think they stand out as prominently as like in previous films where it's just like, okay,
right,
they could have cut that entirely, right? This movie still has like a natural flow and progression to it that doesn't make you feel like, oh, that was really fucking stupid. There isn't a whole lot of that, although to like really look back and analyze it, that yeah, there is a whole lot that doesn't give you anything by the end of it.
Yeah.
If you have any other dislikes, you want to get to them, because I have a transition here into likes, as you mentioned, discomfort.
I would say some dislikes is the audio in some points of this movie are a little bit all over the place, such as the dialogue, because there are points of where the dialogue is kind of hard to hear. And I'm not sure if it was like a Plex thing or if it was like a movie thing. I know that Ted's like, I don't know. I think it's actually kind of a Kubrick thing, but at the same time, it's like it's weird hearing dialogue that's very, very clear and one like throughout the majority of the movie, and then there's like a couple scenes where it's just like very like
Like,
whispery esque.
oh, I was gonna say chewing on a wet fucking sock because they weren't English
Yeah.
syllables. But yeah, no, I'd agree. I think it was pretty minor. Like we've watched some shit as far as sound goes. So this one
Yeah.
didn't bother me as bad. But yeah, no, I do agree.
That's really all I got.
All right, so I kind of want to live in that discomfort for a minute. As you mentioned that, like, you know, there were things that discomfort for discomfort's sake. I think that the discomfort was done way better than we've seen him do it before.
Oh, absolutely.
So, like, you know, if you really break down like the science of cinematography, right? I'm no expert, but like, you know, like the reason that you watch the, you know, movies where like I'm thinking about American Psycho, where you're seeing the camera as he's standing at the top of the stairs, like, you know, laughing after having pushed her down this, right? The reason that they use stairs is to make it feel unlevel. It doesn't sit right in your brain. There's some discomfort about, like, especially in tight spaces like doorways or hallways, and then verticality, where you see something as being significantly higher up or significantly lower down than you, right?
Yeah.
And I think the camera angles and the use of space, colors, and everything, like I think the discomfort was built in instead of just being a creepy movie. I think that it was orchestrated very well to give you that discomfort. I think the camera work was phenomenal.
Yeah. Especially with, yeah, like you said, camera work, lighting, set design, definitely. Like, it's like they take a mundane, like, I guess what's supposed to be a 90s apartment, but it's obviously very, like, 70s and 60s apartment. But, but, like, how, like, let's just say, like, Alex's parents', you know, apartment. Like, how everything's kind of arranged in that, apartment, it just makes everything a little bit off kilter since, how the walls are colored, they're like a puke green and like bright pinks, and then you also have like a bright color filter over everything.
And then the angles in the walls like are cutting off half of your view. Like the one scene where he's in the kitchen, you're literally half of your screen is the doorway, and the other half is Alex way set off in the back in the kitchen. Like I think they do a really good job. And the kitchen
also has like plastic bubble things.
Yeah, like, that's just fucking. That was just fucking weird. But no, I think that like they do it. Not only is it uncomfortable for uncomfortability's sake, like you said, but I think they do a really good job at like giving you that more natural feeling of discomfort rather than just scripted, orchestrated discomfort.
Yeah, that's really like I can really add for like the discomfort thing. Despite like yes, there are horrific scenes in this movie.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
This movie's pretty goddamn violent, but like that stuff's kind of obvious that's gonna like be unsettling. But the fact of the matter is like the film somehow some like actors' acting styles, like this entire film just basically generates discomfort.
Yeah, I think Alex,
for better or worse.
I think Alex was a big positive there too for the movie. I think
Malcolm McDowell hit it right off the park.
His acting is incredible. I mean, that you know exactly what he's feeling, and you also know that like, while you know it as the audience, right? It's not necessarily being conveyed to other characters in the movie, and I think that's like a really difficult stride to hit. But I think it was done really well. Like, as we're watching, right? He's trying to like. He wants to go through with that curing process, right? Specifically to get back and cause trouble sooner. And you can see that on the character's face, but you also are aware wholeheartedly that that other characters within the movie don't necessarily see it the same way you see it.
Right.
I think the acting there like just really hit an incredible stride that kept that way through the whole movie. You felt a whole lot of emotion. You got to see a whole lot of like experience through Alex's eyes. It was a phenomenal job, really.
And I would say generally the acting in this movie is pretty decent, although there are a few cases of like overacting, which I don't know if it helps the movie or it's takes away from it.
Oh, the old man at the end, it absolutely takes away from it.
See, I don't know. I kind of like. I mean, I kind of like the dinner scene.
Oh, it's just so fucking much.
I know it's so much, but
it just becomes like unbelievable, you know? Like it's not. I don't know.
But I think like the only reason why I think it kind of works with my case is that the movie's kind of off kilter, and like a lot of the people seem like they're kind of like all on freaking drugs and stuff while this movie was being made. So therefore, to me, I think it kind of fits, but it does. I can see why it would be a bit much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else is on your likes list? My list was pretty short this week.
I like the fact. Well, I was talking about like the moral conundrum of like the does the punishment fit the crime? Because Alex is a awful freaking human being, like completely. Barely any redeeming factors, if any at all. Like, the only redeeming factor that you can really think of in this is like, oh, he likes Beethoven. Like,
no, I wouldn't say that was the redeeming factor. I mean, like, they force it into him. They force it into him, like, to have remorse. He doesn't have his own remorse. They kind of force it into him. But, like, the capability to have regular human emotions is there. And it's, like, almost redeeming.
Right. And the biggest like thing about it is that you don't necessarily feel sorry for him, but you understand what he's going through when he goes through that experimental like technique, that it's kind of screwed up because like one, if he sees any sort of like violence or blood, he becomes violently ill to the point like, you know, if it doesn't go away after a while, he's going to off himself. And that includes if somebody's beating the shit out of him, so he can't defend himself. On top of that, like, let's just say if like he was like, you know, cured and actually did that technique and then didn't have these impulses. Another one is that if he wanted to like, you know, settle down, marry, and have kids, he can't because like with him, you know, being a freaking, you know, previously a freaking rapist and shit. Like they added, you know, the fact that, you know, he sees like a nude lady, if he, you know, goes at her, you know, he gets the same, you know, symptoms. And on top of that, like with the background music being Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, if he hears the Ninth Symphony, he goes into that as well. And it kind of shows like there's a lot of factors where you kind of think about it that if that technique was put on like someone else, like how, you know, it's like Alex, you know, has trouble like, you know, living after that technique. Can you imagine like somebody like that's like, shall we say they put that technique on like a smoker? Like every time like, you know, like the idea is like, hey, every time like you smoke, you know, you get that violently ill. And then let's just say like, you know, it's like, okay, it's now I can never smoke again. And then they just go into like a smoky bar, or somebody like burns like a wood stove, it makes them violently ill. Or if they accidentally like just burn fucking popcorn.
Right. Well, I hate to bring this back to Nazism, but I wonder if it's the same thing, right? If that form of like inhumane experimentation from the group of people doing it specifically, right? If that doesn't also play into like the Nazi symbolism, right?
Right.
That, like they don't care about your humanity. The idea is punishment
Results.
and well, it's reform. It's fit our mold. We don't care about consequences.
Right. And then afterwards, you know, like when the government finds out they screwed up, they try to smooth it over with Alex, like, hey, it's fine.
That felt, honestly, about all of the disgusting things in this movie, that was like easily a top 3 for me, which I recognize that it probably shouldn't be, but it's just like, hey, we ruined your entire fucking life. You want to smile so we look good and get reelected? Like that, and it just felt so brutally fucking American, dude. I felt shame for that one. It's fucking awful.
Yeah.
I guess it's time to rank them, rate them, whatever.
Despite this being short, this is honestly like number 1 for me because I really enjoyed this. This has always kind of been one of my favorite movies to watch just because of how weird it is. I also really like Malcolm McDowell's performance. Not only that, there's actually like a huge cult following with this movie to the point where there's even like music groups such as the Addicts and the Lower Class Brats that actually dress in freaking droog, which, you know, the style that Alex and his, you know, gang dress up as. I've even like seen people at like the college I went to like dress up like them for like a Halloween party. So to me, that's like there's a lot of stuff in like the cultural zeitgeist with this, and to me, it's just kind of a fascinating movie with everything, with like the different nuances and stuff that it's trying to say, with the exception of the heavy-handedness with like the Nazism and stuff. If I'm making any sort of point,
I think it makes sense. I think it's for me, it's like a really hard thing to pass over, right? Like, right. Yeah, they you know, pretty good stuff, except for the Nazi. Like that, except for the Nazis, is kind of a pretty big fucking thing, you know. I like what you're saying makes sense, and I'm not disagreeing with you necessarily. I just like, man, that's just such a hard thing to move past.
Well, I mean, the sad thing is, I didn't necessarily pick up on that like quite a bit because I'm just like, I just assume, I'm like, I guess that's how British police officers are. And you're like, no, they aren't. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I was gonna do the same joke as last week, where I sharpied a note on the back end that just says Nazis ? But I was afraid it was gonna get flagged and we weren't gonna be able to put it on YouTube anymore. No, for me, I think I'm putting this one 4th, and I think I had better watching experiences with the movies that are top 3. Like I don't.
Right.
This movie was heavy-handed. This movie was uncomfortable, and but I think that the biggest point to me for it not being higher is solely the fact that like your comfort level to just sit still, watch it straightforward, and have a viewing experience, I think, is very difficult. Like this one is going to jar you emotionally. You're going to feel uncomfortable. Like this is the same kind of experience that I would say is like going to watch a shitty horror movie in a theater, right?
Which is probably why I really like this.
I like to watch a horror movie is one thing, right? Because it does make you feel it, like, you know, certain things for certain people, whatever. But I think watching specifically a shitty horror movie in a movie theater, it's shitty. So you already know that, like, you know, hey, I can probably lead up to what's going to happen. This is pretty predictable, right? But then also the idea that like a theater full of people shouting is going to make you shout. So you're screaming not necessarily because of the emotion that you're feeling, but because you're being told what to feel in the theater. And like this is that same kind of experience that like the discomfort is crafted to you, and there's a whole lot of like just heavy-handedness to make sure that you feel as uncomfortable as you are supposed to. And that like that's just kind of it for me. It's so hard for me to look past the oddities of it. I do this may be the first one that I want to go back and just rewatch on my own, just to make sure that I've given it a fair shake, right? Like, yeah, I mean,
to me, like this movie is something that I'd say that you'd probably want to watch multiple viewings. You know,
like I think watching it like as a group of people and watching it like to analyze it, I think is a whole different experience. And I think this is one of the first times that like I'm having difficulty separating that, like to watch it analytically versus to just sit down and watch a movie. So like I sometime before we're done with Kubrick, I'm going to go like on my own. I'm going to sit back and watch it and make sure I've given this one a fair shake. But for now, like it's gonna sit in fourth. It's better than
I
some
mean,
of the other junk we watched, but
I don't think fourth's like a bad spot for this. I mean, I basically am putting this above, like at number one, because I enjoy this about as much as me enjoying watching 2001: A Space Odyssey. The thing that puts this above 2001: A Space Odyssey for me is that it actually has context.
Fair. More than fair. All right. Well, I think that wraps us up for this week. A little bit shorter, but I think both of us probably say we recommend trying this movie at least once. Be prepared to be uncomfortable, and then prepare again.
This is also. I mean, this is definitely one of Kubrick's better movies, anyway. So, like, like you said before, we're now going towards the hits.
Yeah. Yeah, this is probably a top 3, top 4 most recognizable movies from Kubrick. So, if you're gonna watch a few of them or have seen them before, I'm guessing that this one's probably on your list. To be honest.
Yeah.
As always, thanks for checking this one out. We watch movies in the Discord every week on Tuesday, so feel free to join us. I think by the time you're watching this one, we will be just out of Kubrick's, maybe one left. I don't know. I don't even know how many we have to fucking go.
We got Barry Lyndon. I think The Shining's after that. Then it's Full Metal Jacket. Then
and then Eyes Wide Shut. Yeah, so we'll be out of these by the time that you see this. But we will be watching other movies in the Discord on Tuesday that aren't going to premiere for quite some time. So just bear with us.
Yeah.
Excuse me. As always, you can check us both out on Twitch, Stallman at Traductus, and myself at Ted Green Eagles. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you here next week.
Yep, see ya.